Business is fueled by connections.
And Launchpad Live is your connector. Hi, I'm Monique Cotton.
And I'm Bill Kalivas. We're the hosts of Launchpad Live, Spokane's business connection show.
You've heard of Launchpad INW, a local professional networking company that helps you to create business relationships and realize your professional goals.
And now we've started Launchpad Live, a business talk show where we highlight local business leaders, companies, organizations from our 9 Launchpad communities.
Join us for Launchpad Live.
Welcome to Launchpad Live. Thank you for joining us. I'm Bill Kalivas.
And I'm Monique Cotton, and on today's Launchpad Live, we're focusing on business success. What does it take to run a multi-million-dollar company? Well, we're going to ask that question and many more to former Hollister Steer CEO and partner Tony Bonanzino.
Plus, how good is your elevator pitch? Would you be brave enough to get a critique from an interview coach? We're putting one job seeker to the test.
Stay with us for Launchpad Live.
First of all, I'd like our sponsors to come forward. We have representatives from Washington Trust Bank and Witherspoon Kelly. Gentlemen, would you please come forward here and so we can have a chance to meet you and thank you for sponsoring this community. First of all, we have Matthew Alverson from Washington Trust Bank. Welcome, Matthew.
Thank you.
Next up, we have Mr. Rick Repp from Witherspoon Kelly. Glad to have you here.
Thank you for having me, and it's good to be here. Thank you for putting this event together.
Absolutely.
I'm just wanted to be here representing for Witherspoon Kelly. We're very happy to be part of this. These type of events. Witherspoon's been helping businesses get started and grow for over 125 years, and we recognize the fact that entrepreneurs are the lifeblood of a business community, and so we're happy to be supportive of these type of events.
Yeah, and we really appreciate Witherspoon being a part of this network and the show, so thanks, Rick. We appreciate you being here.
Likewise, want to thank Launchpad for the opportunity to be here and sponsor this event. You know, Washington Trust, once again, is a strong local bank. We've been in the community for over 102 years, and really with small business banking, commercial banking, we're just trying to create an awareness and let people know that there are banks in the community that do have funds to lend, and so we're just excited to be here and be part of this event.
Hey, can you tell us a little bit about the type of clients that you're both really looking for?
Our interest in the entrepreneur and small business community is driven in large part by the fact that we're in the business of helping businesses get started and grow. My practice is dedicated to starting and growing businesses with a specific focus on raising funds from investors, doing securities offerings, and then also communicating with shareholders. I'm here with one of my colleagues, Jason Whiteley, and he and I, we have a practice that ranges from startup companies to large public companies here in town. And so we're just, if you're an entrepreneur and you need to raise money from outside investors, you have to comply with the securities laws, whether you want to or not. And they are complex, and you can lose a lot of money if you don't do it right. So we're here to guide you and help you get the job done correctly.
Yeah, and contrary to popular belief, hanging out with some of these attorneys from Witherspoon is a lot of fun. So I just want to debunk that myth.
You're supposed to wait and say that when they're gone.
Oh, okay, great.
And likewise for us, I mean, really, we're just trying to get involved and sit down with any business customer, whether it be an existing customer or a new relationship, whether it be a small business that's just starting out when looking for SBA financing, or looking at maybe purchasing that commercial location that you've been renting for so long. That's what we're trying to offer, is really all that different facet of business financing, as well as that professional advice, so that way you understand what you need to look like within a financial institution, within Washington Trust, to be able to get the financing and grow your business in the way that you'd like to.
And obviously we couldn't do this program without the help of our sponsors, and these are 2 outstanding sponsors. Let's give them a round of applause, everybody. When you get ready for an interview, do you ever get really nervous and maybe a little tongue-tied and a little sweaty, and how do you handle that?
Not so much sweaty, but a little bit of butterflies is okay, I think.
So would you like to introduce our guest?
Yes, this is Melanie Monek, and she is with Washington Trust Bank, and she is a HR coach. So can you tell us a little bit about what you do?
Washington Trust really thinks it's important to reach out to our community, and so we try to go to events and really work with job seekers to help them perfect maybe some of those small things that they don't realize they're doing, and give them more of that polished look.
We have a job seeker with us today. He's going to come and present himself and give his pitch. So let's go ahead and introduce him. His name is Tom Treefry. Come on up, Tom, and take it away.
Hi, my name's Tom Treefry, and I'm a recent graduate of Washington State University, and I graduated with a BA in Business Administration and emphasis in marketing. I have previous experience in marketing and branding, and I'm looking for a job in the Spokane area.
Let's give Tom a little round of applause.
Yeah.
That is
That's
hard to do. One of the hardest things is to talk about yourself, I think. You know,
Yeah.
you can promote something else. Melanie, what did he do right? What did he do wrong? Let's start with the good first.
So good first. Okay, excellent. Well, first of all, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
The suit is always helpful, and one tip that I give job seekers, no matter what position you're looking for, I highly recommend dressing your absolute best, making sure that everything's ironed, that you look very polished, that your shoes are polished, and you did that, so thank you. You also were very, when you gave your elevator speech, you can tell that it was extremely thought out, which was nice, and I could tell kind of what your focus was. You didn't leave it too broad, so I appreciated that as well.
So the bad.
The bad. Unfortunately, it's the same pitch that almost any individual that just recently graduated could give. I didn't get very much information. I don't really know what you did at those internships. What do you want to do? What's your passion? Why marketing? And I think by adding a few more sentences in there, you could still keep it concise, but you'd really set yourself apart.
How many applicants do you probably see in a month?
For each position that we post, we receive around 100 applicants.
What's the number one thing you look for in a job seeker, regardless of the position?
Passion.
Passion.
Passion. You'd be surprised. People get nervous and they forget to smile. And no matter what position you're in, smiling is important. That passion, not just for marketing, but when you give me your elevator speech, if you were interviewing with Washington Trust, I would want to hear the passion about Washington Trust Bank. So make sure that each person that you talk to, that you tailored a little bit to their company.
So do a little research online to see.
A lot of research. Even finding out what their passion is. Are they heavily involved in the community? What are their goals look like? With the internet, you should know just about everything you need to know about a company.
Well, Tom, we really appreciate you coming in and being our guinea pig, and you did a great job. Let's give him a round of applause, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
You bet. Thanks, Tom. And thank you, Melanie. We appreciate you coming. And love Washington Trust. You guys are doing great things in the community. Keep it up. What can you say about a guy who spearheads a multi-million-dollar acquisition for a local Spokane company, sits on several local boards around town, and starts a company with his son?
Well, Bill, I would say he's our special guest for today's show, Tony Bonzino.
Well, welcome.
Ladies and gentlemen, please help us to welcome our special guest for today's show.
Thank you.
Well, we really appreciate you being here, Tony. We know you're a busy guy, so it's always great to see you, and just wonderful to have you in our community still.
Thank you.
Tony, tell us a little bit about your past. Catch everybody up to speed. If they're not familiar with your background, tell us what you are known for.
I grew up in New Haven, Connecticut. Very poor family. My father died when I was 7. I was expelled in the 4th grade from a Catholic school and was sent off to an orphanage in Philadelphia, where I was raised from 4th grade through high school. Spent some time at Boston University and the Air Force. Went on, got a degree in microbiology from Southern Connecticut State University, and then a master's degree in management from Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute, and went to work. In fact, I have never not worked 2 jobs at the same time. I had a wonderful professor. And then one summer, I said, you know, I was close to graduation, and I said, gee, I'd like to accelerate this. And he said, well, I have a job for you. And he found a job for me in this dairy facility. I finished my final semester, and they hired me full time.
So from the East Coast to the West Coast, how did you end up in Spokane?
Bayer had a small facility here in Spokane, an allergy drug facility, a sterile injectable facility, and they were having some difficulties, so they said, we'd like you to go out there for, 3 months. And that was in 1990. And
So was it more like an exile?
It was a, I did know of Spokane. I called it Spoklahoma.
I have not heard that one.
I think that's a pretty
Yeah,
good. Well,
that sounds
it's
good.
better than some of the ones I've heard.
Oh, yeah,
You know,
which we won't bring up.
We
But-
won't.
Yeah.
No.
Anyway, Bear sent me out here. I corrected the problem in about 6 weeks. I laid off 22 people, the first layoff in the firm's history. Someone left a book on my desk, The Management Practices of Attila the Hun.
Wow.
It was a very different cultural experience out here. And then after about 6 months of commuting back and forth to Connecticut, we finally decided, we collectively, the company and myself, decided to keep me out here for 2 years. And we moved the family out here. And that was a very challenging transition.
Did you start to bond with Spokane a little bit? Did you develop some relationships and get to know people in the area?
I came out to Spokane, and this was a non-union environment, and I saw an amazing work ethic, one that I had not experienced at any other site I had worked at. And yes, I began to bond with the people. I began to have this, what I think was an amazing affinity for the people. I even used the word love. I started to fall in love with work and the work ethic here in Spokane. And then they asked me to consider taking over a site in Covina, California, after I had been here 5 years, in East Los Angeles. And I went down there and looked at it and came back and told them no. And it was the first time in my career I had refused to do something for the company. And I said, you don't need me in Covina. You need a linguist. They were speaking 22 different languages in this facility. And
Wow.
communication is so critical in any organization. And it wasn't that people weren't willing to work. They didn't understand what was expected of them.
Right.
So I continued to really enjoy my experience here. And one thing led to another. And Bear decided in, I think it was 1998, that this location, this business, was no longer part of their strategic direction, so they were planning to divest it. And I was put on the team to sell the company. I had the epiphany, as I called it. And I showed up at home that evening, and my wife asked me, you know, how did it go? Did you sell it? And I said, no. And I had this enormous smile on my face, and she said, well, why are you so happy? I said, because I'm going to buy it. And she burst out laughing. And I said, well, that's a vote of confidence.
That's great.
And I said, no, I'm really serious. I mapped the whole thing out in my head. I'm going to buy it. And she got pale. We're going to lose everything.
Yeah. Did you tell her you were going to make an offer they couldn't refuse?
Yes. And it was a 50-week negotiation. It was never ending. But in the end, I put a group together internally within the company, and we found just an extraordinary equity partner out of New York, Windward Capital, and we ended up buying the company. And that was June of 1999. We restructured everything, brought on a wonderful group of people. We started with 240 people, losing money and $18 million in sales. And in 2007, we sold the company, and at that point we had 85 million in sales, 23 million profit, and 525 people.
Wow, quite a turnaround.
It was, and it was all because of the people in that facility.
Yeah, that's amazing.
They're the camaraderie and the respect people had for one another, and the culture we developed there was an amazing event.
And of course, you're speaking of Hollister Steer.
Hollister Steer.
Yeah. Yeah, and what was the impetus for the name? Were those,
Well,
how did that come about?
the original company was called Hollister Steer Laboratories in 1921. And then it was acquired by Cutter Laboratories in 1954, and they maintained the name, and then Bayer acquired the company in 78, I think, and they changed the name to Miles Allergy Products, and
Doesn't quite have the same
it was a
ring to
death
it.
knell.
Yeah. Yeah.
And they had a big event on the front lawn of the facility, and they brought the members from the city council in to speak. What they didn't understand was the emotional attachment the people had to that original name. So when they pulled the banner off, the people on the city council who were there and the management of that had come in from the East Coast all started clapping, and the employees stood there like this. And then they changed the name again. We brought it back to its original name because there was, as I said, an extraordinary emotional attachment to that name. And that day, I brought the company out on the front lawn. I did learn from my past experience. I was a little cautious. They asked me to go up on the ladder and pull the sheet off the sign, and I actually said, no, this is our company now, and I had someone from the maintenance department climb the ladder. When the cloth came off and the name Hollister Stair was up there was an electricity on the lawn, and this chair went up.
So fast forward to when you sold the company, and the company you sold it to is Jubilant?
Jubilant Organicis out of Delhi, India.
Can you talk a little bit about how that came to fruition?
Well, we had created this wonderful company, and the private equity people had decided 8 years is a good run, and everyone had done well, so it was time to exit. And we really needed a lot more capital to take it to the next level. So we went out into the market and created an auction. Jubilant ended up being the company that won. A lot of interesting negotiations there, and in the end, we had a bit of a dilemma the very last evening. You know, actually, I was in Washington, D.C. with my son Anthony, who's now my partner in our new business, and we were flying back to Spokane. And as I'm on the jetway, I had been on the phone for about 2 hours, walking on the jetway to get board the plane out of Chicago to get back to Spokane. I was told I had to be in New York tonight. So gave Anthony and his buddy a hug, and I walked off the jetway. And here's a pitch for United Airlines. To this day, I'll never thank them enough. They held up the plane and pulled my luggage off and got me a flight to LaGuardia. I arrived at 1 in the morning, and my luggage came down, and the unfortunate thing, Anthony and I are the same size, and we have the same name, and when the luggage came off, it was Anthony's luggage.
Nice.
And I said, oh my gosh.
So you're wearing jeans and T-shirts for your meeting?
Well, that would have been great, but the Led Zeppelin T-shirt wasn't going to work.
So let me get this straight. Anthony's a big Led Zeppelin fan?
Well, Led Zeppelin, Tool, I don't know where it is today.
Something like that.
It's cool either way.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
But anyway, I get to my room, and I didn't even have a hotel room, but the group out of India kept saying, just call us when you get in, regardless of the time, and we'll make sure you have a room at our hotel. Well, I ran Hollister Stair on a very careful, structured, frugal basis. We grew very methodically. Well, I called them, and, well, come right over. It's 2 in the morning. We're at the Four Seasons, and your room is ready. $900 a night. I had heart palpitations.
Wow.
But the thing about a $900 a night room is that you go to the front desk, you tell them your sizes, and in the morning there's a stack of boxes with clothing in it for you. So I was well dressed to go to the one-day negotiation that went on for 3 days. $900 a night. I spent 9 hours in the room over 3 days.
Wow.
So I'm still calculating that and still shaking from it.
Yeah.
So you've spoken several times about employees, and you've worked with many, I'm sure, in your time. What would you say is the key? If someone's looking for a job, if somebody is looking to be that key employee, what would you say to them?
Respect. I am just so critical about respect for the individual. And I don't care what level the person is at, from that individual sweeping the floor to the person in the front office. They all deserve the same level of respect. And one of the challenges in larger organizations, as you grow, you tend to get away from that. And you have to remind people, never stop respecting the individual. Make sure they understand that they matter just as much. Our success at Hollister Stair was absolutely the result of teamwork and respect by a great group of people. I get a lot of credit for the success of Hollister Stair, but it doesn't happen without the hundreds of people behind the scenes.
Great. So fast forward to now, you're in a new venture with your son. Tell us a little about that. How did that come to pass?
We have a family that is very entrepreneurial on the East Coast, and one of my nephews got into the document management and storage business, and you know, I'll switch into my East Coast accent now. Uncle Tone, you got to see this business I'm running.
That's awesome.
I feel like I have a family
Yeah.
member here all of a sudden.
And we did. We took a look at it, and it's actually a very sophisticated business because of technology. So we came back, and Anthony and I talked, and I was about 6 months from retiring from Hollister, and I said, why don't we give this a shot? So I retired from Hollister the last day of May of 2008, and that next morning I went on my wife's computer in our home office, and she walked in and said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I need to check some email. She said, not on this computer. Go get an office somewhere. So I was thrown out of the house. People think you retire, you stay home.
Yeah.
Not in my family.
I think that's the failed retirement you're talking about.
Exactly.
4 days after I left Hollister, I was in my new office with Anthony, and in the worst economic time ever, May of 08, now June of 08, we were starting a company from scratch.
Yeah.
And today, we have a very viable, successful operation going. We're about to open our third warehouse with tens of thousands of barcoded boxes, and we manage documents for law firms, hospitals, healthcare facilities, insurance companies, and the way it's done, just think about it. I don't know what the square foot cost of a place like this is, but I know it's expensive. And you're collecting all of this data and all of this paper and putting it in banker boxes. Do you really want to use this square footage to store those documents when we can do it more efficiently and faster, very economically?
And secure as well.
And secure.
And what's the name of the business?
Century Archives Northwest.
Great. And it's been around since 2008.
Yeah.
And what do you see in the current economy? How do you feel like the economy is going right now, especially locally here in Spokane?
I'm the eternal optimist. In 2008, I was saying 6 months, don't worry. I'm truly beginning to see signs of improvement, slowly coming out. I'm also chairman of Inland Northwest Bank, and frankly, from the banking side, I'm beginning to see improvements there. You know.
And you're really involved in the community. I mean, I've known Tony for, gosh, I don't know how many years, but and ever since the first time I met you until now, you've always been involved, you've always been helpful, you've always been positive. Like you said, you're an eternal optimist, but you're one of those leaders, and we have several around this community that just kind of, you sell a lot of products either globally or nationally, so you don't sell a lot of things here, so people don't realize that we have executives like you, or now retired executives like you that are living in the region. And this really is a great place to start a business or grow a business.
I think it's, I go back to the work ethic. I truly believe you have an opportunity. We have an opportunity in this region to continue to see, very stable growth. We're not, the beauty of this region, I think, is that we don't see the volatility that you see on a national scale, the wonderful highs and the terrible lows. It's a very steady state. And what's so important about this community is that we have to take care of one another. If you go to the East Coast, when I moved out here, we lived in a town of 75,000 people in a 10 square mile area. 75,000 people is not a lot. There were 115 different competing nonprofits in that one community. Mm-hmm. Wow. And that community was a continuum that went from Boston down to Washington, D.C. So multiply that 115 in that community by 115 in another 100 communities like it within this small area. So they have so many more resources to draw from. In Spokane, in this region, we have ourselves. That's why it's so important for everyone to take part and help one another.
Well, on that note, I think we're going to go ahead and wrap up. But Tony, as always, it's always a pleasure to get to hear you speak and to hear your story. There are things that I learned today that I didn't know, and it's
really
exceptional.
Enjoyable. Thank you for sharing your success story. Truly rags to riches. I mean, it's wonderful. Really wonderful.
Yeah, Tony, you're an inspiration. So we thank you. Let's give Tony a round of applause, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you very much.
We'd like to thank our guest, Tony Bonanzino, our sponsors, Washington Trust Bank, Witherspoon Kelly, and our HR coach, Melanie Monick, and of course, Tom Treefry, our job seeker, and of course, you, our viewers, too. Thank you.
So please join us for the next Launchpad Live. You can also follow us at LaunchpadINW on Twitter or launchpadinw.com, and you can also like us on Facebook. But before we close, we want to like to leave you with a business thought to inspire you. Whatever it may be, just listen to this quote. I think you'll be inspired.
It's a quote from Andrew Carnegie. Think of yourself as the threshold of unparalleled success. A whole clear, glorious life lies before you. Achieve, achieve.
So we'll see you next time on Launchpad Live.